Thank you very much. I want to thank the Greens Party and INCOD and the European Union for this opportunity to speak here. It's a great honor, and I'm looking forward to learning. I clearly have a lot to learn, and I'm really pleased to be here. A brief note about my background, which emphasized that I think makes very clear that I do not come from the left. There was a previous reference to the Cato Institute in the United States, which is libertarian in the American context on the far right, and they're friends of mine, and that pretty well describes my political views, which over the years have not changed, even though my focus has changed and ended up focusing on cannabis reform. So also the point about my having a degree in economics it obviously influences my views, and of relevance here to this, because we've had several references here to the economic mess, the economic crisis, the euro crisis, whatever you want to call it, the dollar crisis, and the fact that there is growing recognition that marijuana prohibition is a counterproductive fraud, and I mean that quite literally, that it is not a failure, it is counterproductive, it is making things worse, and I do not think that any realistic drugs policy can be formulated that does not do what the Dutch did a long time ago, and that is separate hard and soft drugs. That is the fundamental basis for any realistic drugs policy reform. But given the economic crisis, people are looking at, well, how much money could we raise by taxing cannabis, and what would we save in terms of the costs of cannabis prohibition. And this was obviously a factor in debate in the United States and the recent attempt to legalize marijuana in California. It failed narrowly. It will succeed in 2012. And I think that this is something that our European friends should be aware of. That the United States, which is the principal backer of the drug war in the world, the American people are fed up. That a majority of the American people are now in favor of the legalization of marijuana. A substantial majority in some states are. There are the states where there's not, particularly in the Deep South. But I think that this is something that is needed, that European, as you formulate your policy, look who is tippy-toeing out the back door. The United States is on its way out of the drug war. And I think that the politicians, for the most part, deny it. The Obama administration has betrayed its own backers, but this is something that is happening, and a great deal of impetus to this actually is coming from the right. Now, at the same time, when anti-prohibitionists are looking at attempts to bring regulation to replace the black market and hope that the various American state medical marijuana programs may offer a way out of the current public health disaster. And I think that this is another area where we are all sort of watching this to see how it happens. And the fact is that recent developments have encouraged both looking for revenues and looking for a way out of the mess. And so I've been requested to discuss the economic benefits of legal regulation of cannabis, such as potential tax revenues if cannabis were legally regulated, and the possible savings on medical and criminal justice costs due to the introduction of legal medical marijuana supplies in California. I think that one area of really major potential savings that is extremely difficult to quantify, but very important, is that if cannabis is available medically, that some of a huge amount of money could be saved on public health programs, because cannabis is much cheaper than many of the pharmaceuticals that people are using. But I said the absurdity of prohibition is such that we really don't know the size of the market. For example, the size of the current contraband cannabis market in the U.S. ranges from $10 billion to over $110 billion. And I could go through the numbers and explain those, but that is truly the range on it, and it's absolutely absurd. And the extension of this, for example, that in Canada there's a discussion of how big is the BC bud market, which British Columbia, which is famous for its supposedly high-quality marijuana, is supposedly a big supplier to the United States, it's not. But the guesstimates on the size of the BC bud market range from 1 to 7 billion a year. And guesstimates on what the percentage of that goes to the United States ranges up to 90%. This is clearly absurd because, again, and none of this takes into consideration all of the cannabis that's produced in the rest of Canada. So this is, again, the absurdity of the ranges and trying to make sense of the size of the market. And I know that you have similar problems here in Europe. But even if we knew the size of today's contraband market, we really wouldn't know what cannabis would sell for in a totally legal, regulated market, because the contraband markup, risk markup, the cost of doing business and everything is very substantial. One thing we know in California, for example, is moving a pound of marijuana from the northern part of the state, where a lot of it is grown, into LA, can cost as much as $500 a pound. And this is absurd, because this would should cost just a few dollars a pound to move it. But then again, that's a risk premium there. So again, we don't know what the price would be. We don't know how many people would grow their own. We don't know how many people would do what is common in the Netherlands, go to a coffee shop and pay what is effectively full retail for it. But we do know, for example, one number is, again, the Dutch government takes in about 400 million euros a year, guesstimates on taxes on coffee shops. And it's rather difficult to imagine that our Dutch friends are going to throw that away. It's also difficult to estimate the savings from allowing the medical use of cannabis. And so all of these numbers are ambiguous, and not unsurprisingly, they're used as an excuse. Well, we can't do anything because we don't know enough. We can't stop arresting people because we don't do enough. We can't provide medicine for people because we don't do enough. Ignorance is not a valid excuse for not doing something. We need to educate ourselves. We need to really look at the facts, and that'll be a lot easier, I think, to move forward. With all of those caveats, it's still possible to point out some very significant progress resulting from the public's rebellion against the suppression of cannabis. Now, this is a very important point. California came very close to legalizing cannabis over the opposition of every major newspaper in the state except one, over the opposition of every major elected politician in the state. The entire state establishment was totally opposed to it, lied, threatened, did everything they could to stop it. People came very close to saying, to hell with it, we're going to do it. Next time, we're going to do it. The American people are fed up with the things that the wars that America is waging. Most of all, we're fed up with the war that is being waged on the American people by the American government in the suppression of cannabis. And this war in the United States extends to sick and dying and disabled people. And even though a number of states have various medical marijuana laws, in fact, most of these areas, that the real scandal is that people are not able, sick and dying people still can't get cannabis, even in states that have medical cannabis laws, if they live in areas where law enforcement simply is the law. We have a serious problem in the United States. A major problem in the United States is that law enforcement simply refuses to obey the law. This is one function of, and a very important function, I might add, of cannabis prohibition. Now, one of the benefits of the medical marijuana laws in the United States, and particularly in California, Colorado, and a few other states, that patients who really do need cannabis are able to get it as long as they live in the cities, live in the right parts of the state. But also, new medical cannabis products are appearing on the market. Entrepreneurs have developed new cannabis products. The official mantra of the United States government is no medicine smoked. The name of marijuana in the United States, cannabis, is now smoked marijuana. Smoked marijuana is not a medicine. That's supposed to stop discussion. Smoked marijuana, like, oh, well, we have edibles. Oh, that's bad. But in fact, is that a wide variety of tinctures, edibles, lozenges have been developed for the medical marijuana market in the United States. So I think this shows how that really practical benefits have already been derived from the limited legalization of medical cannabis in the United States. Now, and this is, I can say, this is not just theoretical, because among the hats that I wear is I'm also an advisor to a website company called Weed Maps. Weed Maps is a site that advertises for medical marijuana dispensaries, shows their inventory, shows their prices and this sort of thing, that in areas where there is competition, people advertise what they have, advertise the prices. This brings down the prices of medicine for patients. It increases the quality and the quantity of things. This is a result of a free market in medical cannabis. And this is a result that I hope that will be noticed by the rest of the world, because this is something that is actually happening. And now, again, there is an effort to reduce the number of dispensaries, just as there is an effort to reduce the number of coffee shops in the Netherlands. No particular reason, but they don't like them, and so that if you pick them off one by one, you can, in the name of regulation, in the name of helping the patients, and this sort of thing. Most of this has nothing to do with regulations. It has absolutely nothing to do with helping the patients. It is simply that the police don't like it, and this is pick them off one at a time.